Shut up and sit down.
Welcome, everyone, to the first, hopefully not last, inaugural episode of the new VW-related podcast, The Men, the Myth, and the Legend. I am your host, Michael Dyer, better known perhaps in the Herbie world as Maniac Mike. My guest today for this very first inaugural episode is Mr. Johnny Hoelting.
That's correct, yes.
Hoelting, I actually pronounced it right.
You did.
Very cool. Johnny Hoelting. So, Johnny, long story short, the way I know you, we've kind of like casually I guess we introduced ourselves to each other like via text message or online, like
I think it was
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, on that forum.
On lovebugfans.com.
Yeah.
So this was amazing because obviously I've been a member of the website lovebugfans.com, Maniac Mike 53 for, I want to say since 2005, maybe 2006. It was right after I bought this car in my car. In the right when the hoopla of Herbie Fully Loaded came out in 2005.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's when I officially joined the forum. And then you joined it, was it 2 or 3 years ago?
I guess it was around when I got my VW.
What is your handle on that website? I can't remember.
I actually don't remember.
You don't remember either?
It's been a minute since I've been on it. So whatever, it's stupid, whatever it is.
Is it? It's fine. I mean, it's not the point, but well, I just remember it was funny because like you were saying, like I remember your first post was something like, yeah, I'm from St. Louis. And I was like, oh, that's really cool because, you know, like I think everyone on that website and probably everyone that's like, quote unquote, big in the Herbie VW world knows that I'm like Mike from St. Louis. Mm-hmm. And even though I don't technically live in St. Louis, I mean, we're currently recording this in my parents' garage in Wentzville, Missouri, 40 miles west of St. Louis. Nobody knows where Wentzville, Missouri is. I just say, from St. Louis. So when you said you're from St. Louis, I'm like, oh, that's cool. What part of St. Louis are you from? And you're like, St. Peter's. And I'm like, that's literally 10 minutes down the road from me, like down 70. And I'm just like, holy crap. And then it took a couple years for us to actually physically meet. Yeah. And then we met. So it's currently the week before Thanksgiving. It's the week before Thanksgiving. Oh my gosh, this year's gone by so fast. It's the week before Thanksgiving, and we met in the first week of October.
At that car show.
And that was the Volkstoberfest Air-Cooled Antiques VW show at Schlafly Bottle Works in Maplewood. And it was funny because you came up to me and you introduced yourself, and I'd never seen a photo of you. And I think we talked about it before in text message, but like, how old are you? Exactly?
I'm 30.
You're 30? So you and I are the same age.
Exact same age.
And we live within 20 miles of each other, officially. And you and I both have 1963 Volkswagen Beetles that are replicas of Herbie The Love Bug.
It's a strange world.
It is a very strange world.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like, in a way, for me, because obviously, like, I've been in the Herbie scene for a long time, but there's not a lot of people that are like my age.
How old are people in the Herbie scene?
Well, it's weird. There's like several different classifications because like there's the group of people that are like now like the baby boomer generation. They're like in their 40s and 50s that were alive and growing up when the original movies came out, like starting in 69. And so like you have a lot of guys in the club like 40, 50, like Dave Evans is I want to say who's the guy that is, herbiemania.com, who runs that website.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And then he was on the special edition DVD release of The Love Bug. They interviewed him for it. I met him in Florida this year for the 50th anniversary, and he was really cool to actually meet in person and talk to. But, like, he's, like, in his late 40s, early 50s. Greg Carr is in his 50s. He's the guy that used to own the Porsche-powered car from The Love Bug. So there's that group, and then there's guys like me that are 90s kids that grew up watching the films like on VHS, like myself and Justin Dewick from British Columbia, Canada. He's a couple years older than me. And then there's another group like my buddy Tyler Wilson, who's about our age, lives in Chicago. He's Hotwire Hawk on Love Bug Fans. Great name, right? And so there's a few of us that are kind of like this age. And then what was fascinating to me, and I've had this conversation with my girlfriend before, and the funny thing to me is like when Fully Loaded came out, naturally I was like when the movie was being shot in like 04, and then like watching NASCAR coverage in 04, and there's Herbie like on the track, and 16-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old me is losing my mind. Because the movies were my favorite thing when I was like growing up, like since I was my mom still likes to say The Love Bug was the first movie I ever saw. And so like seeing like a new Herbie film being made at the same time where like I had just bought my 63 Beetle that wasn't Herbie yet, but I knew I wanted it. It was just a really exciting time. And then the movie came out, and I drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then looking back on it like a couple years afterwards, and I'm like, it's kind of crap. Like, it's not a bad movie per se, but it's just not, to me, it's not the character. It's not a good Herbie movie. It's not a bad movie per se. And we can talk about that a little bit later, but going back to the generational thing, what was interesting to me is like what my girlfriend Aimee said, that movie, as much as you don't like it, it introduced a lot of kids, to the character.
And I've only seen that I think maybe once.
You only seen
it, and I didn't, and it was probably 10 years after it came out.
Yeah.
But and I'm always surprised whenever I meet kids who know who. I'm always like, how do you know who Herbie is? It's a 50-year-old movie, and then I'm like, oh yeah, they made that movie.
Exactly.
Where, so.
Yeah, I encounter that too at like car shows and stuff. Like just taking the car to like not VW shows, but just like regular like cars and coffee meets and stuff like that. And I'm amazed by the number of kids that are under the age of 10.
Yeah.
Especially now because the movie came out in 05. That was 14 years ago.
Yeah.
So under the age of 10 that know it, and also like there's what's even amazing is like I'll meet parents of said kids that say they won't show them the fully loaded movie because they're like it doesn't count, and I think that's funny, but I think a lot of, at least for Herbie fans, at least what I will call the pre-fully loaded Herbie fans, myself, yourself, obviously included, it's kind of like the odd stepchild of the franchise, kind of like how diehard Star Wars fans feel about the prequels and now the sequel trilogy that we're currently in. People that were fans of the movies way before the prequels even came out. Like I guess Phantom Menace came out in 99, 2000, somewhere like around the turn of the century.
Yeah.
And so I think that's how people feel about it. But again, going back to the generational thing, I'm getting way off track here. So I went to Florida, the 50th anniversary in March. I trailered my car down there for it. And I met a lot of kids that were younger than me. When I say like younger than me, I mean under the age of 20, that already own and have their own cars.
Wow.
Decked out as Herbie. And it's like it's just so fascinating to me to and what's funny is like there's this one kid who lives in Florida. He's super awesome. His name's Christopher Cook. I wish I could tag him on Instagram. I can't remember what his Instagram is. But he has two Herbies. He has a 63 Beetle that's a Love Bug replica. He has a 20 it's the last generation Beetle that just ended production.
Okay.
He has one of those done up as Herbie, and then he actually just recently, like this year or late last year, bought a 1976 Lancia Scorpion that he's going to do up as Giselle.
That's devotion right there.
Exactly, right? But he's like 20, 21, 22, maybe.
Wow.
I don't even think he's legal drinking age. And it's just, but it was funny because him and I, he's always wanted to meet me. We've met people before that like know each other. So he's like, oh yeah, you're Maniac Mike. Christopher Cook's always wanted to meet you. And I'm just like, oh, that's awesome. And then he comes up to me on the first night of like the celebration, the 50th anniversary celebration in Florida back in March. And he's like, so what did you think about Fully Loaded? And we had the kind of conversation we just had about it. But what's funny is like, I understand why you feel that way about it, but that's what's introduced me to the character. And now here he is 14 years later. He has a 63 Beetle that's a Love Bug replica. He has a 2018, 2017 new Beetle that's done up as Herbie with the original font, and the original style stripes. And, he's building a Giselle. Like, what the heck? There's not that many Giselles out there.
No.
So, yeah, it's kind of that weird generational thing. It's one of the characters, one of those things that's just been passed down through generations, and it's refreshing, and it's just weird to me how that's happened, how that's turned out to be one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, it's actually getting passed on, and like you said, like kids that know your car. It's weird
because I always thought it would just die out with us.
Exactly. Right. Well, that's actually what I wanted to start into. Let's go to my first official question for you. Like, how did the Herbie VW passion actually start for you?
For me, I got the VHS tape from my grandparents for my 4th birthday, and I watched the crap out of that a lot. So I loved it when I was a kid, and then I remember the video store by our house had all the other movies, so I would just rent those all the time.
Was it a Blockbuster?
No, it was I don't even remember what it was called. But I remember my mom pleading with me to not rent like a Herbie-related movie, and I never would. I would always get that. And then I just, and like I guess kind of growing up, you kind of like lose interest. But I always like had it in like the back of my head. Like I always loved Herbie. Like all my friends knew I loved Herbie, and it was always one of my dreams to just eventually get my own car. Mm-hmm.
So at what point was it that you decided that you had to build a Herbie for yourself? Because we had a little conversation on Friday when we originally tried to record this, and we had some technology difficulties. And you were saying that you have a 69 Chevy Nova?
Yeah, that was my first car.
So that was your first car. So how many cars do you currently own?
I have the 69 Nova, the 63 Beetle, and then my Scion XB.
So you and I both have 3 cars.
Yes, we both have problems.
Do you all... Does your car, the fact that you own 3 vehicles, does it also drive your fiance insane?
I think she's fine with it now, but I think once we eventually get married, I think the Nova's probably gonna have to go.
The Nova's gonna go,
and that's okay.
You're gonna let go of your first car.
Yeah, it's served its purpose. It's time to move on.
Is it? So you're just gonna keep Herbie and the Scion?
Yeah, she knows Herbie ain't going anywhere.
That's good.
And the Scion I'm just driving until the wheels fall off. So it is what it is.
So exactly what point was it that you decided you had to have a Herbie? Like that you had to? Like, I'm curious.
So I knew when I was I went to college at UMSL, and I knew as soon as I graduated, I had no student loans or anything. I had no debt. I was on my own. I'm like, this is probably the only time in my life where I can justify doing this. Mm-hmm. Like, because if I was married and had kids, then I was like, I obviously can't spend thousands of dollars living out my childish fantasy.
Right.
So I'm like, because literally I think like it was like 2 weeks after I graduated college, I found a 63 Beetle out in Effingham, Illinois, and I was like, sold.
Oh, you bought it in Effingham?
Yeah.
Like where Mid-America Motorworks is?
Yes.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to FunFest?
I have not.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
It's not as big as it used to be, but it's a good show. I go every year. Yeah, I think I've only missed it once since 2004.
Oh yeah.
I've been going to it a long time. It's a fun show.
I'd definitely like to check it out.
Yeah, it's worth going to. Actually, we'll have to coordinate and see if we can like cruise up together one year.
Definitely.
Like we'll have to have 2 Herbies running down the highway together. That would be fun, especially going through like crossing the river. So yeah, Effingham, Illinois. How exactly did you find? You said it was like 2 weeks after you graduated college, or right after you graduated college. How did you find the car? Was it listed for sale?
It was listed for sale. There was this classic. It was like a classic Corvette dealership. I don't think it's there anymore, but they had a lot of old cars. And actually, it was one of the mechanics bought it to restore, and then he just didn't have time, and so he was just selling it through the shop. Mm-hmm. And I think they had like way overpriced it, so I think it sat there for like a long time. And then I came in and kind of lowballed them, and they sold it to me. So,
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask you what you paid for it?
I paid $4,200 for it.
Okay.
And it was everything was pretty much original. As far as I know, it was the original engine. The dash wasn't cut up. It still the headliner. He had reupholstered. It came with a lot of new parts, like new fenders.
Okay.
He reupholstered seats, all the interior stuff.
Okay.
Floor mats, everything that converted to 12 volt.
That's nice.
Yeah. And what really sold me was the heater channels had been replaced before.
Oh,
and
perfect.
It was so hard, finding a pre-67 bug in the Midwest, and then finding one that wasn't just rotted out.
Right.
Because I'm okay with working on cars, but metal work, stuff like that,
I'm
way outside
I'm 100% the same way. Yeah. That's the one thing that I still really wanted to get into is like learning how to weld and fabricate.
Yeah.
I'm really good at turning, well, I'm not going to toot my own horn too much, but I'm decent at turning a wrench. I work on my own cars. I didn't build like the drivetrain in my car. That was built by my good friend Al Shelton. He's pretty much responsible for building my car mechanically in terms of building the engine, the drivetrain, the suspension. Mm. As far as taking it apart and Herbie fine it, painting it, that was all me and my dad when I was in high school. So you found the car in Effingham, Illinois, and what year was this again? Remind me.
This would have been January of 2016.
So 2016. So wow.
Yeah.
You bought a 63 Beetle for under $5,000.
I know. I was like, this is too good to be true.
See, a lot of people always like to ask me, especially when I tell them that my Beetle was my first car. People always ask me like, what did you pay for it? And I'm like, for the car, and granted, when I bought my car, like yours, it was 12 volt already. It had a homemade wiring harness in it, which was a disaster.
I can't even imagine.
Oh my God. That's actually how I met Al Shelton, but that's a totally different story. and it was the original color, which was L380 turquoise, that sea foam green color.
Okay.
Still was running the 40 horse 1200. And but it was a running, and like you said, like my car had the heater channels and the floor pans already replaced. There was still some nothing structural. There was still some rot in it, the front and rear rockers that needed to be attended to, but structurally it was sound, and it was a running, driving 63 ragtop. And I wasn't even looking for it. It just happened to be for sale in O'Fallon, which is, people don't know where St. Louis is.
I mean,
like,
that's just down the street.
it's just down the street. It's like 10 minutes from here. Kind of like the same distance from here to like your house where you live.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God, like what? How do I not buy this? So you bought the 63, and your car, just from looking at some of the photos, which I'll have to like edit into this, that you showed me, your car was not originally a ragtop sunroof.
It was not.
So did you graft in the ragtop, or what did you do about the sunroof? Because that's some dedication.
Yeah, that ideally I would have done grafted gold in.
Okay, the Goldie section, right?
Again, like the metal stuff, it's like I don't know how to do
Yeah.
that. So I don't even remember the company, but it's like sliding rag tops or something.
Oh, so it's an aftermarket.
Yeah,
kit.
it's an aftermarket kit.
Really?
I installed it. A lot of the times you can install it on top or bottom.
Yeah.
And I see the ones on top, and I don't like that because you can see the fiberglass. So I did
when
it
it's open, right?
underneath, and I'm pretty happy with it. Obviously, it's not as nice as
Having
stock,
the original Goldie, right?
but really, I mean, that was like the one thing I didn't want to compromise on was the sunroof.
So you cut the hole in your roof. How nerve-wracking was that? Did you do that yourself?
Yes.
How nerve-wracking
that
was
was
that?
very nerve-wracking. I
Oh my
definitely
God.
measured that like 30 times
Yeah,
before I cut into it.
Yeah,
so.
the whole. I've known a lot of people, or talked to a lot of people that have grafted, Goldie ragtop clips into their cars, or cut aftermarket sunroofs in their cars, and there's that old saying where it's like measure twice, cut once. Yeah. And they always say like you said, they measure like 30 times.
Yeah, like I wasn't gonna gamble on that one.
Wow.
So.
Very cool. Well, it fooled me, admittedly, from the photographs, and like you said, probably because you
if you put
installed
it
it from the
underneath,
bottom side
yeah.
up. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because I've seen a lot of the aftermarket, ragtop sunroof clips, and it's like that, like you said.
Yeah, when it's open, you can tell.
Really? Well, here, I mean, you got a hole in your roof,
Yeah.
So that's the whole point. It's not Herbie until you put the hole in your roof. And
Exactly.
Unfortunately, I have this lovely skin condition called ginger skin. So like I'm a redhead. All that Irish blood only comes in handy on St. Patrick's Day, and so it's like I never open the ragtop typically unless it's like night outside.
Yeah.
But anyway, so back to your car. So you bought the 63. You cut the hole in the roof. What inspired the look of your car in particular, and does that have any relation to what your favorite film in the Herbie franchise is?
Absolutely. So my absolute favorite one is The Love Bug, the very first one. I love everything about that style of car in the movie, so that's the look I wanted to mimic with mine.
So for those who don't know, that would be the light blue stripe.
Light blue stripe.
The wide wheels. The stripes are not on the louvers, and they're not on the aprons.
Yes, which everyone always says, hey, you forgot to put your stripe there. And I said, no, I didn't.
Yeah, right. That's still an argument, like, in the Herbie community. People were arguing about that at the 50th celebration. I'm like, watch the damn movie. It's clearly not on the apron. Like, what? So, why is The Love Bug 1969? Why is that your favorite film in the franchise?
I think just personally, I think it's the best one. It's definitely the one I've seen the most. And it's really the only one I'll go back and watch now. Like I really haven't seen a lot of the other ones since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I watched them when they were released on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
But like the first one, I just feel like it's timeless.
It is. It definitely is. And like you, it's my favorite film in the franchise as well. And it's one of those movies where you can go back and watch it and you get something entirely different about it watching it as an adult than you do a kid. And I think that's why the character and really the appeal of that first film, I think that's why it was so generational. Like it keeps getting passed down even before Fully Loaded. I think that's why, because it's such a kind of a timeless story. And the one thing that Love Bug does so well that I don't think the sequels, I mean, clearly they're all about Herbie. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but The Love Bug was a movie where Herbie was a character in a bigger story.
Yes. I feel like in the other ones, he's more of a prop, like what's the second one is just like what is Herbie
Again.
And I like that movie, but it's like what does Herbie have to do with any of this?
Exactly. He's just the underdog helping out the little old lady, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Like me in particular, like I always loved Monte Carlo just because like I grew up in addition to watching the Herbie franchise, I was familiar with like a lot of the old Don Knotts movies, like the Apple Dumpling Gang, The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. So I thought it was great that Don Knotts is Wheelie Applegate.
Yeah.
And obviously, I still think The Love Bug is definitely my favorite film of the franchise, and in my opinion, like yours, is definitely the best film of the franchise. I just went Monte Carlo in terms of the look of the car, just because I just thought it was the coolest look.
Yeah.
It just in terms of like, and now these days, like when for a long time, like Justin Duke's replica and my replica were regarded as like some of like the best like Monte Carlo tribute cars out there, I think. And now, like, I don't know about mine has definitely been surpassed by now. Like, there's Richard in Australia. His car, I was just looking at photos of it the other day. It looks straight off the movie set. It's ridiculous.
What have they done that's different than yours?
Well, my car has their high back seats, which the high back seats in my car, which are currently being redone by a friend of mine. So they're not in the car right now. Were never that authentic looking. I was never happy with them.
You fooled me with them.
Well, thanks, buddy. Yeah. But no, they're getting redone, and like I don't have like the slotted, like the Monte Carlo cars never had the slotted wheels, which I installed just because I have 4-wheel disc brakes in my car to get more air to the rotors. Which, looking back on it now, it's like I should have just put solid wheels on it because I'm tired of cleaning brake dust off the tires, But anyway, so what kind of challenges did you have to overcome during the restoration of your vehicle? Like what was like the biggest or some of the bigger challenges that you had to overcome doing like the restoration or turning your 63 into Herbie? Let me say that.
I'm trying to think. I think the engine might have been the most challenging because I really tried to make it go with a 1200 in it, and it just when you convert it to 12 volt, it's just so Frankenstein, and and then it's just like these parts aren't really supposed to be working together, but they are, and then so it just makes it unreliable, and then I never felt comfortable driving anywhere with that engine. And so I got upgraded to the 1776 this year. But I mean, there was just, what's nice is it's just like your side hobby, not your daily driver. So like when I would get all mad, I could just step away, park it, and not deal with it for a couple days. So. I'm
the same way.
Yeah.
I get very frustrated.
Yes.
There's so many days where I'm frustrated. My girlfriend knows it too much. Yeah. She's so patient. So you said you have a 1776 in it. How else is your car set up right now? Like what else do you have going on with your 63, Herbie?
As far as
like everything, like how's it like? Give me some specifications. Like what kind of wheels do you have in the car?
I got slotted wheels similar to yours. I think you would even. I just got them from Sip One, just because they're wider.
Okay.
I like I still have the stock tires and stuff I put on.
Oh, really? Okay.
But I like the wider tires on it.
Right.
One thing I want to do is the rear end kind of sags a little bit. So I got to figure that out.
Well, I mean, you can adjust the torsion.
Yeah, that's what I got to do on that.
It's normal. They torsion bars they don't wear, but they sag over time because they're springs essentially.
But I mean, I got the new engine. I've replaced all the brake lines. One new wiring harness.
Nice.
Everything. Engine. Everything's new with that. With the electricals, the alternator, coil, all that stuff. Distributor, electronic ignition. The sunroof, like we talked about. It's got a custom front windshield where the previous owner custom made it where it's like half of it's tinted.
Oh, really?
So,
the top 6 inches of it, like you see on newer cars.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that, but I think eventually I might go back to the normal.
A solid windshield.
Yeah. And the one thing that I gave up, is you have the trim or the chrome trim around the windows.
Oh, the deluxe window trim, right?
So that was very challenging when I was doing that on my car, and I just said, you know what, I can live without this. So I just put it on, and eventually I'll go back and do that.
It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that. So.
Admittedly, I didn't even install the window trim in my car. The windshield I had done by, I want to say Al Shelton actually installed my windshield too, and it was a pain in the butt. And then I think I sent it to the headliner shop to get the headliner in, and then the rest of the windows were put in, and it was not fun.
Yeah, I think next time I'll probably just pay someone to do that. And I don't run a headliner in my car.
Oh, really? Well, some of the movie cars.
I wanted to be as accurate as the race Herbie at the end of Love Bug.
Oh, really? Oh, right, because that car doesn't have a headliner.
It makes it very loud. So I'm sure someday I'll have one in there, but for right now, I'm fine with it.
See, it's funny, that was a big debate, too. just going back to the old days of the lovebugfans.com forums, is like, oh, your car shouldn't have a headliner. Well, some of the movie cars had a headliner. Like, some of them did, some of them didn't. It's just, it's personal preference. And, you know, like, and that's why, like, the general public, they look at your car, they look at my car, and I'm sure, like, our cars get confused for each other just because it's a white 63 Beetle with the 53s and the stripes. Like, people probably see your car, they think it's mine, or vice versa. Just people that know us in passing, or people that really know us, and I'm sure that it happens all the time. But, like, you know, to us, like, you could spot the differences in my car, and clearly we're talking, you know, in detail about the differences between our two cars. But, like, no two cars. I don't think I've ever seen two Herbies that are exactly 100% the same.
And I think that's what's fun about it, is seeing everyone's different take on it.
It's your own interpretation of the character. Exactly.
Yeah, there's no right way to do it. If you wanted to get a 74 Super Beetle and paint it black and put a 53 on, say it's Herbie, like, good for you.
Yeah.
Like, if that's what you want, then by all means.
Hell yeah, man. But we're just cool because we have 63s.
Exactly.
So what do you think is next for you and your car? What's the next big thing? Is there something big coming up, or is there anything else you want to do to it? Really?
Well, every year I want to do something big every year. Like, this year was the engine, the year before was the wiring harness. So next year I definitely want to do disc brakes
on all four, or just in the front.
I think maybe just I'll try the front and see what that's like.
That's nice.
Yeah, but that would be a little more safer.
Oh.
I want to do that, and then I'd like to get a roll bar like yours, something similar to yours. Yeah, I just think that would be cool. But yeah, and then also I just want to do find new front fenders, since I got some Bondo in mine.
Really?
And same with the doors and stuff. So because eventually, before that starts rotting again.
Right.
But that's pretty much the only, like, rot on my car I need to take care of.
Yeah.
Oh, and the running boards. I want to get the white running. I just have like the cheap. Yeah, I want to get the white. I don't even know where I could find those, but
I want to say Wolfsburg West sells them.
Do they sell them?
They used to, because for a long time they were the only ones that had the LED set, like the actual LED 7 fender beam.
Yeah, that's where I was able to get that.
Right.
I remember it wasn't in stock for a while. And I was finally able to get it.
It comes and goes, and it's funny because, like, I know so many guys that, because it's one of the most random, like, one of the most frequently asked questions on, you know, the websites, and I'm sure on Facebook and stuff, you know, people message us. I've even gotten emails like, hey, Mike, where did you get this, or where'd you get this at? And I'm like, just, you know, there's this thing called Google. You know, search it, you know. But Wolfsburg, like you said, yeah, sometimes they have it in stock and sometimes they don't. It must be their manufacturer of it. But they used to at least sell the white running boards. I don't know if they do.
I'll have to check that, because I bought like the cheapest ones possible when I got my car.
Yeah.
And I definitely need to upgrade it.
Yeah, definitely do that. So going back to, like, the film franchise as a whole, do you think there's anything about the Herbie films, and again, we're talking pre-2005, and maybe we can incorporate it into this question, that are ahead of their time, or perhaps more relevant today that they were when the films were first released? Like, do you think there's anything? Yeah, do you think there's anything in the films that were a little bit more ahead of their time?
I think maybe they're depictions of women, not necessarily in woman-like roles, like Michelle Lee in the first one.
Right.
She's very mechanically oriented, things like that. And that's not something I really processed as a kid, because it's just, at that time, it was just kind of, you know, you wouldn't really bat an eye, but looking back at that time, that's kind of seemed like that character was a little ahead of her time.
Well, not even just that, but, like, you brought up a very good point. Is like, like you said, you watch the films as a kid and you get something different out of it watching it. Like, you didn't pick up on that as a kid, you know. But it's funny because, like, every Herbie film, I think you could even still make an argument for Bananas. Every original Herbie film of the first 4 has a strong female character, like in a prominent role. And like you said, Michelle Lee's character, Carol, in the first film, she's very much a woman playing in a man's world. She's very self-aware of that. And, you know, but it doesn't compromise who she is. She's quick with driving the cars. You know, she drives the Thorndike Special around when she and Jim Douglas goes around on that date. You know, she doesn't care. You know, she puts on the coveralls. She fixes Herbie after
Which that would be hard, getting that out of the fuel line.
Yeah, you know, she getting rid of the Irish coffee. I mean, she fixes Herbie. Tennessee doesn't do that. Jim Douglas doesn't do that. Carol Bennett does it. Michelle Lee's character does. And then in Rides Again, you have Stephanie Powers' character, Nicole, who's, you know, that TWA-esque airline stewardess who flat out, well, she hits him over the head with a boiled lobster.
Yeah,
She's
smacks Ken Berry. That's like the funniest thing when you're 5 years old.
Oh my god, right?
Yeah.
And then of course in Monte Carlo you have Diane Darcy, Julie Summers' character, and she's, you know, she blatantly tells Jim Douglas, it's kind of that running joke. They almost make a joke out of it in the movie where it's like, you know, Jim Douglas is, you know, he doesn't have anything against women racers, or, you know, and she thinks, you know, he does, and because she's dealt with it, like to quote the movie, all her life. I heard it from my mother, my father, my aunts, my uncles, but I'm not going to hear it from you. And it's just like, you know, yeah. And of course they downplay her character where, you know, she crashes and it's like, I missed a shift and I lost control. And it's like, come on.
Go and finish the race.
You were going, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
come on, you had a good thing going there. Like,
Yeah.
you really did. And then I think in Bananas, you could say, like, Aunt Louise is kind of a gypsy free spirit. And then
Cloris Leachman.
yeah,
absolutely.
Cloris Leachman. And then, you know, Alyssa Davalos, God, what was her character's name in that movie?
I've not seen that one in a
I haven't
minute.
watched Bananas in a while either. I should, especially since I just saw Joaquin Gray III in Florida again. So yeah, like like you said, it's not something that you like. That's the weird thing, and I guess it's because like when I was a kid and I went to car shows and stuff because I grew up going to car shows. You know, between my dad and my family, we're very into cars, and you know, my mom introduced me to a lot of car movies like Back to the Future. You know, I watched the original Knight Rider TV show with, you know, David Hasselhoff with her when I was a kid, you know, on reruns and stuff like that. So, like, my mom introduced me to a lot of car-related movies and TV shows. My dad was responsible for taking me to a lot of, you know, car shows. And that was funny because, like, I remember being a kid and being like, why aren't there more girls here? Like, why, like, is this like a guy thing? And I guess it is. And I think that just became from my... You know, like, especially like watching The Love Bug, like, why are there not a bunch of Carol Bennetts around here? You know, and what's great now is you do see that more now. You know, I don't know if you heard about like that like they called her the fastest woman on four wheels, Jessie Combs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was who just recently passed trying to set, or I think technically she did set the new fastest land speed record. And they were currently debating about that, like whether or not they can give her the title because she died, not because of her, but because the vehicle failed. You know, and that's really sad and really tragic. And I think the best thing I read about that online was in a comment section on some website, and it said, you know, somebody posted like that was a really badass woman, and then the reply underneath of it was that was really a badass. Right? Like it doesn't matter the fact that, you know, she's a woman. And like I keep telling because so much of this hobby, even part of the Herbie hobby, and I can admit it, I fall victim to it too. It's like you see something online, it's like, oh, I gotta outdo this person, or I gotta do this. You know, so much of the car hobby is men and their egos.
Oh yeah.
And it's like and you get sick of it so fast. Yeah. Like at least I do. Yeah, the hobby, we need more women in the hobby. Not just the Herbie hobby, but we need more women in the car hobby in general. So obviously this podcast, again, this is the first episode, hopefully not the last episode. This is for, you know, my communications capstone at Lindenwood University. And as a communications major, I have to acknowledge the fact that the way we communicate today is so much different than the times in when our cars were built in, you know, in 1963. And do you think that owning and maintaining a vintage Volkswagen today is easier or harder in this world we live in, full of communication technologies and basically instant gratification?
Yes, it's a challenge to maintain your car, your VW in this day and age, but that's what is fun about owning it, I think.
So do you think it's harder to do?
Yes, harder, but in a good way.
Okay. Why do you think it's harder?
There's so much stuff we take on our modern cars for granted. Like I have to adjust my brakes.
Right.
Oil changes way more often than you would do a new car.
Right.
There's just so much routine maintenance you wouldn't even think about on a car. Checking spark plugs, all that stuff, timing, tuning your carbs, everything about a VW is designed to suck your time, but in a good way.
That's true, but like, okay, so you think it's more or less the maintenance, but like I'm more or less talking about like the communications aspect of it, like in terms of like, do you think it's harder to find parts now, or do you think do you, really?
Well, I think it's harder to find good parts.
Harder to find good parts.
Yeah, because I can get online and order whatever I need for my car, but with the quality of it, it's always a toss up.
Right.
Because
Okay.
I would much rather get a used part, a
Okay.
used original part, than something new.
Okay. So you think the hobby more or less would have been easier, like you think it would have been more or less easier, and I guess you're right, easier, like say if like we were building these cars in the 70s and you could still go to the VW dealership and,
Yes,
and buy old stock
yeah.
parts.
And now it's kind of like the monkey's paw. It's like we can have the ability to order whatever we want online, but the quality's less than it would have been 20, 30 years ago. I feel.
Right. So you have like the thing I've noticed is like you have to pick and choose. You know,
Yeah.
in terms of like you could buy interior stuff from this place, you can buy electrical
Yeah.
components from this place. You know, you can buy rubber parts and trim and stuff from this place. So yeah, I definitely see your point there.
I mean, shoot, just taking it for a safety inspection is like a nightmare because
Well, tell me why. Why was it hard to take
they
part of the
just
safety inspection?
like most of the people I take it to, they just have no idea what they're looking at. I took it
that's
up.
true.
I took it up once, and anyone who owns VW knows that the VIN 368 is going to be on the tunnel under your back seat.
Right, stamped
And-
into the frame.
And when I took it up, they're like, "Oh yeah, your car passed, but there's no VIN on it." I'm like, "Oh no, it's on the
It's
there."
on, yeah.
It's like, "No, it needs to be on the dash there, and it's not there. You must have took it off. Blah blah. You have to go call highway patrol." And so it's this big ordeal.
What?
Yeah. So it's just finding someone who just knows the basics of these cars is difficult.
Yeah, that's true. So that's an interesting point. Like the legislation aspect, I guess it's kind of hard, and it's getting harder to like
Yeah.
register old cars
Yeah.
and to maintain old cars, and like, especially since like it's so easy to watch like these, and especially like what I do for a living. I work for a classic car dealership, so
Mhm.
it's like I'm somewhat in tune with like what the collector car market is and what it
Mhm.
isn't and stuff. And it's hard. Like I remember like just this year, I finally put my car on full coverage because it
wow.
was so expensive for me to do it when I was 16.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
And actually, when we bought my car, my name is still on the title, but I think I'm the second name on the title. The first name on the title when we registered it is my dad
Mhm.
because it was cheaper.
Yeah.
Like to put the car in my name, it was to put the car like, so I think for the first so many years of that I owned this car, it was completely in my dad's name. The insurance was in my dad's name, and I was just a legal registered driver of the car.
Okay.
So I was just covered. But like otherwise, it would have. I can't remember what it was. So this is going back to 2005, but it was ridiculous.
I can't even imagine. Yeah.
Oh my god, and obviously like as I've gotten older, and my driving record has stayed mostly clean, except for this guy getting a speeding ticket over the summer.
It happens.
Herbie got a speeding ticket. Yeah, it's so funny because you try to blame the car, and the cop's just like, nah.
How fast were you going?
I was going. Oh gosh, I'm putting this on tape. Oh my god, I was doing 19 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Oh, that's not bad.
So I was doing 59 miles an hour in a 40 mile an hour zone, and admittedly, I was speeding, and I totally took the ticket, and I wasn't even going to argue with the cop. Like I was going down a 2-lane road, and it's like a divided highway. So obviously, I'm not going to say where it was, or I'm not going to say what city it was in, or anything like that. I was going down a divided highway, and I'm going down the road, and sure enough, I look at my speedometer needle, and it's like 60, 65, and I'm like, whoa, I'm going like way too fast. So like I literally let off the gas as I'm cresting a hill, and I get over the top of the hill, and the speedometer I see finally drops below 60, and sure enough, there's a cop right there on the right, and I'm just like, oh no. So you try to, and the cop was super cool, but he was funny because he was just like, man, your car is so cool. I want to let you off with a warning, but bro, you were going 19 miles an hour over the speed limit. Like, you're lucky I don't take you in. And I'm like, yeah, I know. You're 100% right, officer. I'm so sorry. So yeah, the one time I got and it makes sense because it's like, am I too hard on my car? Probably. I have a tendency to drive the crap out of it because it's
That's what it's for.
Yeah. I know, but
That's what it's for.
I'm admittedly too hard on it. But going back to like the communications topic, because now we're going a little late on time. Like I was more or less asking you that question because to me, like, I think it's interesting because like these days, like it's so much easier. Like the way you and I connected at first was through a forum.
Exactly.
And like, back in like, if you wanted to do what we do now, like in the 60s and the 70s, you wouldn't have been able to do that.
There's no way without the Samba and message boards on
The
stuff. There's no
Samba.com.
way I could have
Yeah.
done anything to
Right.
my car.
And I think that makes it easier. And also it's the same. It kind of goes back to that philosophy of Like, and I even met this kid from Texas when I was in Florida, where he's like, he pulls me out of a crowd. I have no clue who this guy is. And he pulls me out of a crowd and he's like, "You're my Dyer." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You're like my hero." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, I've seen your YouTube documentary like 30 times." And like, but he's like, I knew I could build my car because I saw you do it. And I saw Justin Duick do it. And like, he saw these group of younger guys do it. And it's just like, holy crap. We're actually like, by building these cars and taking photos of them and participating in forums and showing off photos of them like on the Samba and stuff like that, we're actually inspiring other people to do the same.
I mean, that's what, when I was building my car, I would reference so many other people's builds on that website
Really?
and just see what they did, and it's just made it so much more helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I look for, because we still have, obviously you've seen my car. I haven't seen your car in person yet, and we need to, especially now it's November, but this spring we need to get these cars side by side.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have to do that. I'm sure your fiance and my girlfriend would love to have a car date, like we go to wine country or something like that. I think they would enjoy that. I would enjoy it too, because
that'd be fun.
Oh, that'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, so speaking of your fiance, we went, like I said, originally we tried to record this on Friday and we had some technical difficulties. So you and I had a very nice pre-interview conversation. And I was like, "Oh, you got anything going on this weekend and stuff?" And you just casually dropped, "Oh, I plan on proposing to my girlfriend tomorrow." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, you were the only person who knew that I was going to propose on Saturday.
But you asked her parents, of course.
I did, but they didn't, like, their parents, they didn't know when I was going to do it.
You didn't know when. Okay, so you had their blessing. You just didn't know when. They didn't know when you were going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you do it? I'm totally putting you on the spot now.
Long story short, we were at the park.
Okay.
And I basically got on one knee under the guise that I was looking for something.
Oh, okay.
And then I psyched her out and pulled the ring out of my pocket.
Oh.
So, and then the rest is history. But I think the third stop we made after seeing her parents and my parents was go to my house so we could take pictures in Herbie. So
you took engagement photos.
Yes.
Is that going to be like the engagement announcement?
I hope so. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think I might have to do something similar.
She knows
when
it's
the
a
time
package
comes.
deal. So
yeah, that's good. The women in a car man's life. it's
God bless them.
Right?
Yeah.
Like seriously,
that can't be easy to put up with.
They put up with so much.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. Like there's so many days where I'm so frustrated working on the car, and I'll be talking to my girlfriend and I'll just be complaining about technical jargon, and she doesn't, she understands some of it, but she doesn't I guess, and I'm terrible at comprehending stuff when I'm really angry. I'm just spitting out, throw wrenches around, and stuff, and she'll just talk to me and calm me down, and I'm just I'm so lucky to have you. What did I do to deserve you?
Yes.
Come on.
As much as I love my Herbie, I would gladly trade it for my fiance.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. See, now you put me on the spot.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
I mean, if you're gonna put a gun to my head, I guess I would do the same. I would. If you're gonna put a gun to my head, then I guess I would. For the longest time, especially when I was building this car when I was in high school, I didn't think it'd be possible to maintain a relationship and maintain the car thing. And before my current relationship, and now we're getting way off track, but that's fine. I don't care. I don't think you care either. But before my current relationship, I hadn't been in a serious relationship in 5 years, and I kind of at that point I had accepted the possibility that I'm just going to be that weird car guy that lives in a 3-car garage with a 2-bedroom apartment above it and stuff. And then
hey, that's
my world changed.
That's a perfectly fine life too. But.
Yeah, it would have been fine, but my life is so much better.
Yes.
Otherwise, because the point of, and I think going back to the car thing, the whole point of this, to me, is to be able to share it.
Yes.
Not just with someone that's your significant other. It doesn't matter if you're a girl or guy, or if a guy and guy and a girl and girl. It doesn't matter. It seriously does not matter. And that's one of the best things about the car hobby and the Volkswagen hobby in general, is it's such a diverse group of people. It's probably there's those there's very much a stereotype of the kind of person you'd see driving a muscle car.
Yeah.
There's very much a stereotype of the kind of kid you'd see driving a Honda Civic.
Yeah.
But they're really, and of course Volkswagen buses probably have that hippie-esque stereotype, but just in the Volkswagen, the air-cooled Volkswagen world in general, you never know what you're going to get.
No, everyone has their own story. about it.
Exactly.
When people come up to you and talk to you about your car, everyone has a different story.
Oh
They
my
they own one, someone owns
Right.
one. You know.
What's the best story? What's your best gas station story? Someone comes up like you're filling your car up at a gas station. What's your best gas station story?
Man, I have. Oh, I mean, between my Herbie and my Nova, I have like just everyone just wants to tell you about their old car.
Yeah,
You know what I
right?
mean?
Yes.
You're like, oh,
my
cool,
God.
that's a '69 Nova. Yeah. Well, I had a '72 Chevelle, and it's just
Right.
like, and so it is cool hearing, everyone else's stuff.
Right.
But I get a lot of. I think my favorite thing with my car is it was when I was getting my new engine in this summer,
Right.
and I just had it in the garage, and I
Okay.
could hear that there's a bunch of kids playing next door in the front yard,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like trying to time it and do the carb, so I'm like revving the engine and everything, and then I turn it off, and I just hear the one kid go like, "Oh man, there's a race car in there," and then I heard the other one go, "No, it's not. It's just Herbie." And so I was like, fair enough.
Do you find that like people are driving people like rev their engines next to you at stoplights and stuff like they want to why
Yeah.
do people want to race the Volkswagen? Like I don't.
You know you're gonna win. I get that. I got
Yeah.
that a lot in my Nova, especially in high school. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, because it's a Nova. That's a completely different kind of car than a
But
Volkswagen.
I would always, they would rev it, and then I would rev my engine and
Oh,
be like,
yeah.
I'm ready to go. And then like the light would turn
Right.
green, and they would take off, and I would just sit there,
Right.
or I would go right. So
Oh
I always
my-
enjoyed doing that.
Oh my gosh. I had this buddy in high school that had a 66 Corvair Monza.
Mhm.
4-door. No, it was a 2-door. It was a Monza. It was a 2-door. 66 Corvair. His grandfather at one point was like head of the Corvair club in St. Louis. And so like, and of course it's not fast.
Or
The
safe.
Beetle, right? Unsafe at any speed. Like, F you,
Yeah.
Raffnader. Aren't you running for president again for the 40th time?
I didn't know he was still alive.
Is he?
I don't-
I don't know. Who cares? Either way, it was just funny. Like, so like, instead of like revving our engines and being like super macho, like I remember my junior year of high school because I drove this thing when it was green,
Mhm.
still seafoam green. Every year my junior, like practically every day my junior year of high school, even in the winter, I did it.
Wow, that's impressive.
I'll never do it again.
I'm
I-
just saying, like, there's no way.
But him and I had this contest, like between us, like when the bell would ring at Wentzville Holt at 210, who can get out? Because we'd always park next to each other.
Mhm.
So we always had the two air-cooled rear-engine cars right next to each other at the Holt High School parking lot in Wentzville. And we had this contest between him and me where like we would like who could get out to their car the fastest at 210 and get it to idle when it's 10 degrees outside. That was that was us revving, like that was the macho rever engines. And I remember one day like we were so competitive about it. I don't know why we were, but we were, and it was so funny. Like I'll never forget this one day. Like the bell rings at 210. I get out to my car, and I don't know how he got out there so fast. He must have ditched out of class, but he was already in his car. It was already idling, and it started snowing.
Oh, no.
It's January. It started snowing. And like it's coming down fast and it's starting to stick and stuff. And he's like, "See you, sucker, I'm leaving." So as I'm getting in my car and starting it, and it starts and stuff, and he backs out of his spot, like he doesn't even move 2 feet, and and I hear a slap sound coming from the Corvair, and he just puts his head down, and I roll down my window, and I'm like, "What's wrong, Ralph Nader? Did the Corvair throw a belt?" And he's just like, "Shut up." So then I helped him change his fan belt in a
Oh my
snowstorm
God.
in January.
Oh,
That's
God.
probably my most like horror like story that's Corvair related, but I just always thought that was funny. But yeah, like the car hobby is such a very diverse group of people, and like it's so easy. I think it's easier today to connect with car people
Yeah.
than it was, and I think that's one of the nice things about like the communications paradigm. Like as much as like I don't have my own Facebook page,
Mm.
and as much as like I don't participate in social media, it is something I probably, especially as a communications major and hopefully soon to be communications professional, it's something I need to start engaging in. And I
Mhm.
think I just have to pick and choose my battles. What's up? Oh, right, of course, as my lovely girlfriend just reminded me. Herbie, my car, has his own Facebook page.
I know. I personally have liked that page, so I
Oh, you
always
have?
receive the updates.
Oh,
whenever
okay.
there are some, so.
Right. So yeah, Herbie of Wentzville, if you want to look it up on Facebook. So yeah, so my girlfriend Aimee, God, I love her so much. She maintains a Facebook page for my car. And she does so much. She maintains a Facebook page for her car. She maintains her dog has its own Instagram. Like she's like a social media genius. Like, oh my gosh, where's O'Reilly? Yeah, I'm talking to you. Come here. He's chewing he is so chill right now. Look at this dog. You can't see him because he's not on camera yet. Come here. Come here, pup. Come here. Oh, thanks, babe. Hey, come here. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come here, come here, come here. Oh, I'm taking the headphones off now. Come here. Hey. Come here. Oh my gosh. What? What are you doing? People want to see you. Oh my gosh. You're impossible. Hey. And now I'm chasing the dog around on camera.
He's camera shy.
Oh my gosh. Come here. Oh, right. I got it. That's a good idea. Hey.
Go for a ride?
You want your bully stick? You want the bully stick? Right. Come here. There you go. Go get it. There you go. Good boy. So, oh my gosh. Well, that was fun. So, the dog that is currently sitting in the 63 Beetle, that is O'Reilly. You can follow him on Instagram at O'ReillyMVPup. Did I get it right? O'Reilly. Hashtag O'ReillyMVPup. He's named after Ryan O'Reilly, the Blues' most valuable player in the most recent season. And when he was eight weeks old, was he 8 weeks? 8 weeks old, he actually had his photo taken in the Stanley Cup.
That's adorable.
So he's O'Reilly. He's O'Reilly, the Stanley Cup pup, and he loves riding in Herbie. And he's from Needy Paws Rescue in St. Louis. So yeah, you know, because there's that great scene in The Love Bug where Herbie's driving.
Oh, the dog.
Driving in circles, right? And then Tennessee comes out, and then he opens the door, and then like there's 5 dogs that just run out of the car. Hey, bud, you want out? He's like, let me out of here. All right. You gonna sit down now? Good boy. He's such a good dog. I mean, that dog is just so chill. All right. Well, we have gone way longer than I anticipated. But I think it's been fun. It's been a good.
Absolutely.
It's been a good conversation.
Who
I feel
doesn't
like
love talking about their cars?
Yeah, exactly right. And hopefully people like listening to other people talk about their cars, because I'd totally be down to make this like a regular thing.
Yeah.
And obviously I think we still have to get our cars together. So I think you and I will be producing some content, or people will be able to see that content
absolutely.
together. And I look forward to I look forward to the soon to be wedding photo.
Absolutely.
Of course, you and your lovely bride to be, in wedding attire, kissing through the sunroof of the car. I think that's kind of the staple.
Yes.
At this point. What, you want out, pup? You want out? I better let the dog out. The dog in a car guy's life, right? Oh, you want out, buddy? Where's your bully stick? Where's your bully stick? Here, where's your bully stick? What you do with you? It's right here. Where's your bully stick? He's gonna get out of the car now and watch him. Good boy, O'Reilly. O'Reilly MV Pup. All right. Well, I think I'm going to end this episode at this point. So this is the first inaugural episode of the new VW podcast. Hopefully not the last episode of the men, the myths, and the legend. The legend, of course, being that guy right there. My name is Mike Dyer. This is my guest, Mr. Johnny Hoelting. I'm of Wentzville, Missouri. He's from St. Peter's, and I think we're going to sign off. O'Reilly, do you have anything to say? No? What? What are you doing, Bob? You want to say hi? You want to say hi, buddy? Yeah, he's just a good boy. I love dogs. That's one thing like me and my girlfriend when we first met. All right, so we'll catch you guys next time. You guys can hopefully be able to download an audio version only of this podcast in the YouTube description below. I'm Mike Dyer. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.